All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our fourth virtual Tea Town Hall. I'm delighted tonight that this event is going to be hosted by Council members Lillian Hunter and John Hines, and I am delighted to serve as the mayor of the city of Tacoma, Victoria Woodards, for those of you who I haven't had an opportunity to meet. We are pleased to see so many of you joining us today, as we are excited to engage with you in this new virtual setting. Before we get started, there are some technical pieces you should know. This event is being recorded and will be made available for those who are unable to attend at this time. If you would like to ask questions, please look at the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Staff will be passing your questions on to council members or on to any of our guest panelists this evening. You can ask general questions, or you can ask a direct question to one of our speakers or to one of our council members. This virtual Tea Town event is being translated into Spanish, as I mentioned earlier. To listen to the discussion in Spanish, you will need to be using the most recent version of Zoom. And please look for the interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom window and select Spanish to hear the interpreter. Many of you have reached out to us to share your questions and concerns during COVID-19, and it became clear that there was a pressing need to come together and address some of the key issues that have become very prominent throughout this pandemic. The virtual Tea Town Hall series is an opportunity for us to do just that. Over the course of this series, we will be taking a deeper dive into some of the things that matter most to you. And tonight, we will be focused on the issues related to education. Now, anyone who knows me knows how deeply important Tacoma's youth are to me. So much so that we brought together the first ever Tacoma's Youth Commission. And they have been doing an amazing job. They continue to find ways to engage during the pandemic. They meet via Zoom. They do blood drives and work with Grit City Magazine to create youth highlighting. Or they work together with Vine Magazine, Grit City Magazine, to create highlights of youth experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic and the stay-at-home order. But this is just one way we can support our youth in our community. I'm excited to hear tonight more from others who are taking actions to support Tacoma's youngest residents. And I'm so delighted that between council members Hunter and Hines, we have almost 50 years of experience in the education field, which is why I called on the two of them to serve as our co-hosts this evening. Not only do they have the experience, but they really have the passion for education and our kids. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to turn over tonight's meeting to Councilmember Hunter and Councilmember Hines. Councilmember Hunter?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, for that wonderful introduction and your kind words. And I'm pleased to be on this panel for the very reasons I share your interest in our youth and in education, and also in the library services, particularly Tacoma Public Library, where both Councilmember Hines and myself served as directors in a previous life before coming on to the council. So again, I'm Council Member Lillian Hunter. I'm in my third year of a 4-year term, and I am one of the at-large representatives on the City Council, which means I represent people all across the city in all 5 of the districts. It's great to see so many community members from across our great city joining us here tonight and sharing in our interest in both the library and educational opportunities. And I'm really pleased by the panelists that have joined us as well. So today we are excited to be here to provide you with more information about resources that are available to you as it pertains to the topic of education and children during this COVID-19 virus and crises. And I want to take a moment just to salute the parents across and aunts, uncles, and grandparents across our city who are working so hard with their children to provide them with education and opportunities while we are at this stay home, stay healthy directive. So we have guests today from the Tacoma Public Library, Tacoma Public School Board, and the United Way. And we are happy to answer any questions that you might have. And you have some directions there of how to get those questions to us. We look forward to engaging with you this evening on a topic I consider to be of paramount importance, no matter when, but especially important during the COVID-19 pandemic. I look forward to our conversation, and please know that any question we can't answer, we want to hear that question, and we will make sure that we utilize our resources to get an answer to you in a timely fashion. So again, thank you, Madam Mayor, for hosting us here. I'm just so pleased to be here with these great colleagues across the city to talk about education children during the COVID crisis. Thank you. I look forward to our conversation. And Councilmember Hines, my esteemed colleague, I turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Hunter, and thank you, Madam Mayor. And it's a real honor to be here. I'm Councilmember John Hines, and I'm your District 1 representative. Thank you for joining us. Since we're an educational audience, I'd like to talk about the districts that we have in the city of Tacoma. We have 5 districts, and they correspond roughly with the 5 high schools in the city of Tacoma. And so I represent District 1, which is kind of the Wilson High School district, so the west end and north end of the city of Tacoma. Like Councilmember Hunter, I'm so happy so many of you were able to join us tonight. Since council meetings have moved to a virtual format at this time, I know it's been difficult for some of you to connect with us, and we may not be as visible as we were before the governor's stay home and stay healthy order. We are sheltering in place along with you. Like many of you, you're probably sheltering in place with your family like I am, but I want to assure you, City Council continues to meet and work hard for you, and so does city staff. Our meetings on Tuesdays, as well as our special meetings on Fridays that specifically address the city's COVID-19 response, are broadcast live on TV Tacoma, and the archived videos can be seen on our City Council meetings webpage. You can also catch these meetings on Facebook Live. So thank you all for joining us, and I'm excited for this event to begin. And I turn it over to our mayor,
who's on mute. Thank you, Councilmember Hines. As many times as I do these, I can learn so many things, but I keep forgetting that mute button. Thanks to both of you, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. So I just want to remind everybody, if you'd like to ask a question, be sure to look for the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Staff will be passing your questions on to our council members and other panelists throughout the evening. Again, you could ask general questions, and they can be directed to one of our panelists. And as Councilmember Hunter said, if we don't get an answer to your question this evening, we will follow up with an answer. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the council members, and we'll get this party started.
Hey, that's what we want to hear, a Zoom party. So we've been talking about our subject matter experts here tonight, and it is my honor and privilege that on the details surrounding the status of the library and the resources available to during the residence of the pandemic, we have Amitha Loniel, the Assistant Library Director. And for those of you that are fans of the library, and for those of you that might be future fans of the library, remember the logo is Start Here, Go Anywhere. And we can still start here, go anywhere in the library world. And Amitha will be helping us with some details on how that happens. And in information that's related to the school district, we have Director Scott Hines from the Tacoma School Board. And you may have seen Director Hines many times meeting the press, talking about the challenges of the school district and the amazing job that our educators are doing for our children in this very unique and interesting time. I think this might also be an opportunity to point out that Mayor Woodards and Councilmember Hines and myself are products of the Tacoma School District. I'm a proud graduate of Mount Tahoma High School. Councilmember Hines is a proud graduate of Foss High School, and of course, Mayor Woodards is a Lincoln graduate there. And I spent a number of years as an educator at Lincoln, so I'm right there with you, Mayor. So we also, on tonight's docket, we are going to learn some—
Councilmember Hunter, I just have to interrupt for 1 second for the—
You didn't go to Foss?
I did not. I'm a Lincoln High School alum along with the mayor. So lots of my friends would, if you had said that.
But you teach at Foss.
So I just want to make sure I clear the record.
Well, let's just forget Foss then. Okay,
I'm
bookended by Lincoln graduates. Just when I thought that this presentation couldn't get any better, I get that clarification. So thank you, John, for that. How did I but maybe I just needed to say Foss High School, so I should say Wilson High School, and then we should also say, what am I leaving out? Stadium High School, plus a number of other schools. And we'll leave it to Director Hines to share good news about those locations. Back to the business at hand here, we also have we also get to hear about volunteer opportunities this summer during the COVID-19 for adults and children. We have amazing people across our city with unique talents and skills, and there's never been a time when we needed to tap into that as we do right now. And with that in mind, we have Alison Loft, Volunteer Engagement Manager of the United Way of Pierce County. And with that, let's get started. Amitha, could you please give us a brief overview of the status of the library at this time?
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Hunter, and thank you everyone for letting me join this conversation. It's a real honor to share this space with you. So as Councilmember Hunter mentioned, I am the Assistant Library Director for the Tacoma Public Library. I joined the library in January of 2019, and as the Assistant Library Director, I oversee branch services and our collection development department. So as far as the current state of the library, many of you probably know that we closed our buildings to the public on March 14th. And since then, we had to very quickly pivot our service model around our e-resources that we have available on our website and beginning to virtualize our programs and our services. And as everyone knows, the city is facing just a tremendous budgetary crisis right now. So earlier this month, we made the painful decision to temporarily lay off 85 of our employees through July 25th. 85 employees represents about 2/3 of our workforce. This was not an easy decision by any means. Part of our decision making was wanting our employees to take advantage of the expanded unemployment benefits that are available currently under the Federal CARES Act. The employees who were placed into standby status are those whose pay is the least impacted, and they are continuing to receive their health benefits at this time. It really goes without saying that the heart of our library service, it's not our books, it's not our DVDs, it's not our stuff. It is very much our staff and our people and the relationships that they maintain and nurture throughout the city. So we are very eager to welcome our staff back and begin resuming the library service that our city deserves and needs right now during this crisis. As far as planning for the reintroduction of services, Governor Inslee's plan indicates that libraries can resume service when we enter into phase 3. As we move into phase 2, our plan is to invite our staff back into select offices and stand up full-time telephone information services, as well as continue to partner with key stakeholders to deliver critical services throughout the city. Another key component to phase 2 is going to be planning for our library services. In phase 3, we hope to introduce what we would call contactless material pickup, so a way for people to safely check out materials again with little to no contact. And we also have to begin planning for the task of receiving back the 60,000 materials that are currently checked out to residents right now. So I do want to assure you that if you have something checked out, please don't worry about it. Please hold on to it. Your due dates have been extended. There are no fines or fees being accrued on those materials. We want to do everything that we can to make sure that everyone can stay home and stay healthy. So that is my overview of the library.
Well, thank you, Amitha, and I'm really glad that you talked about how we're not going to get any fines for books that are checked out, because I have this book checked out. And it's Norman the Slug with the Silly Shell. And let me tell you, this is really a read over in this household. So that's good information to have. And so we have a number, certainly all our students in the Tacoma School District have a library card, because if you're a student in Tacoma, City of Tacoma School District, that automatically gets you a library card. But no doubt, as days are getting long and the walls are starting to come in on us, And residents who don't have a library card, can they get a library card while these libraries are closed while we wait for phase 3?
Absolutely. So if you go to our website, tacomalibrary.org, and you do a search for e-cards, you can instantly sign up for an e-card, which will grant you access to all of our e-resources. When we get back to resuming our library services, you'll have an opportunity to convert that card to a full status library card, which would allow for checkout of physical materials as well. Councilmember Hunter, I think you're muted.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just like you, that mute button just gives us fits here. Amita, I want to just confirm that the library card, the e-card that you have just described, is free to Tacoma residents.
Correct. It is free to Tacoma residents. So just head over to our website. There's a search bar in the upper right-hand corner. Just type in e-card and you'll land on the page you need to.
And if someone were to order a book, kind of like Norman the Slug, would that book then be mailed to them, or is it only ebooks that are being distributed at this time?
So it is only ebooks. So Governor Inslee's mandatory closure of public libraries means that we cannot check in or check out physical materials at all at this time. So we are really encouraging those who have access to connect with our e-resources, which include ebooks and streaming content, and it's all available 24/7 on our website.
Could you just do a quick list of what devices, if someone had, we've got our desktop, our laptops, our iPads, our readers, our phones. What's the minimum someone would need to enjoy a book that's an ebook in this time?
Sure. As long as you have a device that can connect to the internet in some way, you can enjoy an ebook. I know that it's a personal preference how you read your book, and I am very fond of physical books, but as someone with a small child, I've really become very grateful for the opportunity to read books on my phone because I can do it. I always have my phone on me. I can sometimes get in a good chapter while my kid is watching something else. So again, at minimum, just an internet connection and a device. So.
Excellent. Are there any other digital resources available for library residents that we haven't mentioned or people might not know about?
This is my favorite question, and I wish I had more than 2 minutes, but I will share with you some of my favorites. So you've heard me mention ebooks throughout my talk. So there's a couple of ways you can access that. Our largest collection of ebooks is through a platform called Overdrive. So if you're on a desktop, you can just head over to our website, tacomalibrary.org, click on online resources, and you'll see something that says ebooks. If you are on a smart device, such as a phone or a tablet, you can head over to your app store. And if you do a search for an app called Libby, and the way to remember that is Libby is short for librarian. Someone was trying to be clever. But you search for Libby, download the app, and you punch in your library card number and your PIN, and that will get you started with our largest collection of ebooks, which is not only books that you can read, but also books you can listen to, e-audiobooks. Another platform that we have available for ebooks is Hoopla, and that's a pretty cool platform. It has a slightly different collection. It does include comic books, which is kind of fun, and it also includes streaming resources such as TV, movies, all of that kind of stuff, and it's available instantly. With Overdrive, sometimes you have to wait for a title to become available, but with Hoopla, it's there for you right away. Another streaming resource that we have if you're looking for something to watch is something called Canopy. And a great thing about Canopy is they have a channel called Canopy Kids. And I really love this because it has really great streaming content for younger kids especially. So if you're looking for things like Sesame Street or Daniel Tiger, you can access all of that there for free. And they also have videos that are short videos of popular books, things like Where the Wild Things Are or Don't Let the Pigeons Stay Up Too Late. You can watch these short 5-minute animated videos, and I love watching those with my little one. We love seeing our favorite books sort of come to life with that. Another resource I would point out is one called Creative Bug. And so this is for our community that likes to make things or is looking for hands-on kind of activities and learning. And this is probably good for a little bit of an older age set, so maybe upper elementary all the way through teens and frankly adults. And there's like fantastic things. You can learn how to knit, you can learn how to sew. I just saw you can learn how to make galaxy slime. You can learn how to draw manga. There's just really cool fun things that you can do through Creative Bug. And the last resource I'll share is one called Help Now. So I know that many of us are kind of struggling with the homeschooling aspect that's been introduced to us. And so Help Now is a great resource because it is live tutoring help that is available from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day, right through our website.
Well, that's a fantastic detail there. Just as was mentioned quickly as we started this broadcast here, that we have our Spanish interpreter, Daniela, doing such a wonderful job for us. Are any of these resources available in multiple languages or languages other than English?
That is such a great question. I think it might vary depending on the platform. I'd be happy to follow up and notate that for after this meeting.
I think that would really be helpful for our listening and viewing audience. And then on that final note there, we have for many years, as long as I can remember, the library has hosted the Summer Reading Club. And we had an amazing number of students who would read hundreds and hundreds of pages of book and adults as well. They set a competitive goal there. Did you, in this interesting time that we have, what activities are planned for the summer for children and or for adults?
For sure, summer is always the library's favorite time of the year. So this year we've kind of adapted our beloved summer reading program. It's going to be completely virtual, and it will be geared towards independent learning for all ages. We've brought on a couple of new partners, which is really exciting. And this year is the first year actually that our log will be available in both English and in Spanish. The theme for this year is Imagine Your Story. And so I encourage everyone to tune in June to our website and check out some of the activities and content that we'll be putting together.
I could probably spend the rest of the allocated time asking questions and hearing about the activities at the library. But thank you, Amitha. This has really been a great overview, and I hope we've just kind of tapped into some curiosity of our audience there. And so moving along in the interest of time and the subject area expertise on our panel, Councilmember Hines, I'm going to turn it over to you to take it over now, if you would, please. Councilmember Hines.
Thank you, Councilmember Hunter, and thank you, Amitha. Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, Amitha. I first of all, like Councilmember Hunter said, I could go on and on about all the wonderful resources for the library, especially I have 2 little kids, so we use it all the time. But at this point in time, I'd like to introduce Director Scott Hines. We are not related, just FYI. I get asked that quite a bit. And Director Hines, thank you for being here with us tonight. Could you introduce yourself and kind of tell us what's going on with Tacoma Public Schools?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the clarification. I know that there's this belief that John Hines and Scott Hines have never been in the same room at the same time. And I'm hoping to dispel that this evening. We're in virtual rooms at the same time. And if it's easier as we go forward, just call me Scott. I'm comfortable with that. I'm in my 9th year on the school board. I'm currently serving as the president of the school board. My wife is a former high school English teacher. We have 3 kids in Tacoma Public Schools, a 6th grader, a 7th grader, and a 10th grader. And it's been an incredible ride. I'm just blessed to be a part of what's happened in the city. It's been transformational, and it's a reflection of the true partnership that exists throughout the city. And we have built together an amazing school system.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We just had a couple follow-up questions for you, Scott.
Sure.
First question would be, what resources are available for students and parents during this pandemic through the schools?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I would be remiss if I didn't say that this is graduation season. And we are all heartbroken that our seniors aren't able to experience traditional rites of passage Their school year ended early. Their spring sports seasons were canceled. Summer musicals never happened. Senior proms, graduation. And I will tell you that the school board, our favorite time of the year is graduation. It's a renewal for us. It's a reminder of why we do the work, the sense of pride that those kids have as they walk across the stage. Families are proud. And so while we're unable, because of the governor's order and because of this public health crisis, to have a traditional in-person celebration, the city really has wrapped their arms around our seniors. We had some amazing cap and gown pickup celebrations. If you've seen footage of those parades, truly inspiring. Students have asked if we can continue to do that year over year. In fact, I think they might prefer that to sitting in an audience and listening to people like us give long speeches about what they should do with their lives. But it doesn't replace an in-person graduation. And we recognize that. And so our hope is that everybody takes a minute to recognize these 2020 seniors and help them to feel special and help them to truly appreciate all that they've had to work through in the last 4 years, really the last 13 years, to walk across the stage virtually and accept that diploma. So thank you for indulging me with that. Resources, this continues to be an ongoing process for us. The guidance from OSPI initially was continue learning, but it can't be formal and it can't be graded. And we're in our 10th week of virtual school distant learning. And immediately our staff put together online materials that were translated in multiple languages that were aligned to the Washington State learning standards by grade. And then we also printed those materials off available for pickup at our 10 middle school lunch distribution sites. The other thing that came out of the initial governor's order was to provide meals to students. In Tacoma, we are right about 65-ish% free and reduced lunch. We know a lot of students depend upon the schools for meals, and that was an important service for us to continue. We initially ran those meal programs out of our 10 middle schools, and we heard that there was still more need in the community. So we engaged our transportation fleet, and they are driving 112 different routes on a daily basis. We are at almost 700,000 meals served during this first 10 weeks of school closures. It's been truly amazing to see all the nutrition service workers up at the crack of dawn to put those meals together, and the paraeducators and others that are handing them out, and the security services teams that are keeping those areas safe. And then the other piece that came out of the governor's initial order was childcare, and to prioritize that childcare for our first responders and our healthcare workers. And we have about 160 students that participate in our day camp programs. And it's been amazing to see the community partnership come together because day camp, daycare is not something that school districts do. We house them often in our school buildings, but we don't provide the services. And once again, Tacoma partners have stepped up to provide those services. And it's a work in progress. So I think that if you have kids in the school system, you've seen it evolve as we've transitioned to this online learning environment. And we continue to refine and get better and to listen to community and hear what they need and to try to provide those services and materials and resources.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I have a first grader who is very sad to not finish first grade. So it's not just for seniors, the loss of a year. So to kind of follow up on what you said earlier, are the schools holding online classes for students, or what does it look like? Yeah, we are. And, I think it's important. We have transitioned to a distant learning program. And we know that the magic in Tacoma public schools and the rise from a 55% graduation rate in 2010 to 89.8% last year is because we, with our educational professionals, have figured out how to engage students in a variety of ways. And we have a system that's built on in-person, face-to-face learning. The magic of our teachers and paraeducators interacting with those students on a daily basis will never be replicated in a virtual environment. We are doing our very best to try to continue to promote learning under the guidance of OSPI. So I mentioned that initially we were told no formal learning. Then we were told we'll do some formal learning, but it can't be graded.
And we were told, now you need to grade it. And I think it's been challenging for students and families, because if you're a student initially and there's no expectation that you engage in learning, then what is your incentive and what is the relevance? And I think we may have seen a lot of kids disengage early on, understandably. But we've also been working with our teachers, a lot of professional development and utilization of online resources. We're a Microsoft district, so we use Microsoft Teams. Recently, we began offering workshops for families multiple times throughout the day, so that they can better understand how to use these electronic resources. And our teachers are accustomed to in-person education and using these sort of computer resources supplementally. And now that's become the primary way that they deliver instruction. And so slowly but steadily, we've seen more engagement, more learning, with an understanding that that can't be an exact replica of in-person, face-to-face learning.
Yeah. No, it's, being a teacher, no one who got into the profession to not be near children all the time and to be with kids and working with them. So it's amazing what you all have been able to do so far. I mean, in good ways so far. So next question would be.
I would guess that people have never appreciated teachers more than having had their kids at home for the last 10 weeks and trying to replicate that. I know I'm the dean of the Hines Family Academy, and that's been quite challenging. So I think it is a great opportunity to really recognize and appreciate the talent that it takes to be in a classroom and to organize a classroom and to be a thoughtful learner that can engage students and transfer knowledge.
Oh, yeah. When I sit with my son, every day I think about how much I owe Miss Grote from Grant Elementary School.
Yeah,
what she did with him. So, next question would be, what's the status on youth summer programs? And where could residents find out more about youth programs this summer?
Yeah, unfortunately, as I mentioned, this is a work in progress, and it continues to be shaped by data and science, which we appreciate, and that's what the governor and the state secretary of the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction and the Department of Health secretary, the guidance that they're providing us, and it's a phased approach. And so on the, summer is usually the time to get outside. The weather is nice in Tacoma. There's all sorts of ways to be engaged and active. And we just don't know. We don't know what those in-person gatherings are going to look like. I will tell you that we're in conversation. Those same great community partners that helped us put together the day camps are the same great partners that we rely upon summer after summer to offer really cool programming. And so we're trying to figure out that kind of an if-then category. If this is the situation by which we can gather, then this is the type of programming that we can offer. So unfortunately, there's nothing official to talk about at this time. We're also, though, looking at some academic opportunities as well, most likely virtual. Summertime in Tacoma has transitioned away from summer school meaning credit retrieval and really becoming exploration. The great partnership between the school district and the city, our Summer Jobs 253 internship program, that's learning, right? There's so much experiential learning that happens in the summertime. We're probably not going to be able to replicate that same sort of in-person learning, but we're definitely working with partners for recreational opportunities and also for a variety of academic learning to occur this summer. So stay tuned. We're hopeful that we'll have an announcement in the next few weeks of what kids and families can look forward to this summer.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Another question, and this is maybe on top of lots of people's minds, but due to the kind of COVID-19 shutting down the economy and, lots of governments are struggling with revenue and budgets, are the schools experiencing a budget shortfall going forward? Is that something we're going to have to adjust to in the future with Tacoma Public Schools?
To date, we don't feel that impact. Our levy dollars are geared towards providing extracurricular enrichment activities for students, and those are based on property taxes. But those taxes get collected on a 3-month cycle, and so we've not yet felt the impact. Where we see an increase in expenditure is around meals. So typically we have students that are on free and reduced lunch, but we have students that purchase lunches. We've lost that ability to collect any revenue on those students that might purchase a lunch. At the same time, as I mentioned, we're over almost 700,000 lunches that we have, or meals that we've provided. So that's had an impact on our revenue. The costs associated with running the day camps. Now we're optimistic. The CARES package that Congress passed had money in it that was intended to go to states and pass through to local school districts. I think we've approximated about $8 million in expenses due to COVID. But in terms of our regular operating budget, we don't anticipate any shortfalls that are directly related to COVID. The caveat is our meal programs are 10-month programs. We don't typically offer meal programs in the summertime, and our bus drivers are 10-month employees as well. And so when school ends on June 19th, we're not currently funded or under contract to continue to provide meal service or transportation services. So that is an area that we'll have to figure out. We believe that the governor is going to issue an expectation that those services continue, and that will put the district in a position of having to try to identify funds that will allow us to continue those programs.
Okay. And then I think probably the question on everybody's mind, but you probably don't have, do you have any idea when our kids might be able to go back to school this fall?
I will tell you that is without a doubt the most frequent question that I get. And people don't like my answer because there is no certainty around that. I know that people are ready, kids are ready, being cooped up at home. I know my 3 kids are tired of being at home. They want to get back to school and back into the routine. In talking with our public health professionals, it's very likely that we're going to see a resurgence of the virus in the fall. It doesn't appear to be safe at this time to transition back to full normal in-school operations. I suspect that we will be in some sort of a hybrid model. Our superintendent has 3 different planning teams right now working on various aspects of what return to school will entail. I think most likely it'll be some sort of a rotational AB type schedule. Half the students are there on a Monday, Thursday, the other half are there on a Tuesday, Friday, and everybody distant learns on Wednesday, something to that effect. But it's just, the nuances. So I have yet to understand how we get second graders to socially distance. How are they going to stay 6 feet apart? How's that kindergartner going to keep his mask on? The amount of PPE, that personal protective equipment, and the burn rate. And we're working with 30,000 students, 5,000 staff on 70 campuses, and the complexities to allow people to come back. And I will tell you, as we listen to the community, there is deep concern about the safety of returning to school that we hear from our students and families and from our staff. They're looking for assurance that it's safe to return, and the board has been very specific in its direction to the superintendent to make those decisions based on the best data and science and the subject matter expertise of the Washington State Department of Health and the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department. So we're working on a daily basis. There is no magic return date. We're hopeful that we'll be back sooner than later. But I think that's why it's even more important for us to continue to get better at distant learning and to redefine what that looks like so that we can use that to bridge the gap until we can all safely return on a regular basis into school buildings.
Okay. Yeah, I know. Like I said, I have a first grader, so social distancing is an alien thing to him. So I can't. It's going to be interesting, but I know we have good people working on what the future looks like, and it's going to be a community-wide effort to kind of reimagine what school is going to look like come this fall.
Drinking fountains. Your kid who goes to school, what we're hearing from the public health professionals is you can't have drinking fountains on because of the potential contamination of the drinking fountain and the spread of the virus. So it's just those sorts of things that add up when you've got, thousands of hands over hundreds of days a year that we're going to have a viable plan in order for people to feel safe and comfortable.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Scott. And We really appreciate you being here for what you've shared so far. Next up, I would like to introduce Alison Loft. Alison, would you take a moment and share us a little about some of the volunteering through United Way and what the organization does to help support children in education here in Tacoma?
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Hines, for having me. I'm Alison Loft. I'm the engagement manager at United Way of Pierce County. United Way is still working hard remotely to help break the cycle of poverty for struggling families in Pierce County. At the onset of COVID-19, we reached out to community agencies to determine their needs for volunteers and resources. And we created a landing page for people to look for help and for ways to give help. So some of the opportunities that we are engaging folks in right now are some of the more emergent needs. So volunteering at local food banks to help assemble and distribute boxed food in a curbside model. That's an opportunity that many food banks are looking for help. They're having increased numbers right now, and they do provide the social distancing and hygiene guidelines for all of those opportunities. We're also promoting the Washington Mask Challenge. You may have heard about this, an effort to ask anyone who's able to sew and donate masks to do so. A lot of people have stepped forward. I think to date we've had over 400 masks donated, which we can then hand out to people who are working with at-risk populations. We also have many virtual volunteer opportunities for people who are at home. Some of the more popular ones are our Thank a Frontline Worker. We have students and adults and senior citizens who are all making cards, and we're giving those to a lot of the folks who are on the front lines, whether they're at a shelter or healthcare workers. And then we also have our Send a Smile campaign, creating notes of encouragement for isolated older adults. So those are just a few opportunities that we have available via our COVID-19 resource page, but we also have an opportunity to help this summer with our Read United Summer Program. We partner with the summer meal sites. We recruit volunteers and we bring books and enrichment activities to meal sites across Pierce County. That's a great way to give back over the summer. We kicked that program off in June with our Day of Action. Last year, we assembled, with the help of corporate and individual volunteers, 3,000 supplemental snack packs that we can hand out at meal sites throughout the summer. So that's a great way to get involved as well.
Okay, that sounds great. So if residents want to get more involved, Alison, and volunteer their time, how should they reach out, or what's the best way to connect to your organization to do that?
Yeah, so if you go to our website, www.uwpc.org, you'll go to our COVID-19 landing page, click on the volunteer button. That takes you directly to those opportunities. You can also email us at volunteer@uwpc.org, and we can help you find what you're looking for.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Alison. I really appreciate it. And we're glad that you're here on the panel, and I'm sure there could be other questions that you're going to be able to help us out with. At this point in time, Councilmember Hunter and I are ready to open things up to the community and answer your questions. Mayor Woodards, I think you had something that you wanted to add.
Yeah, great. I think we've got some questions coming in, and I just want to remind everybody to hit that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on an iPad, it's at the top of your screen. But to find that Q&A button, type your question in there, and Kitty will get those questions. Our guy in the background will get those questions out to everybody so we can get them answered. So let's dive into the questions. Also, if you joined us late, and you prefer to speak in Spanish, we want to let you know that that you can also press that button as well. And Daniela is in the other room translating in real time, and she will translate your questions as well. So don't forget, we'll follow up with answers to the questions we don't get to this evening. So I'll turn it back to the two of you, and I think Councilmember Hunter, you have the first question.
I do, and this actually, I'm going to direct the first question to School Board Director Hines. Scott, there's a question here. Is the city working with Tacoma schools to identify more devices for students that need them for remote learning, and how many have been distributed? We know that there's a new partnership along these lines, and we did see something in the news about devices, but could you speak in a little more detail to that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what this crisis has told us is a computer, a connection, and a curriculum are the minimum needs that students have in order to be able to be engaged. And without getting too wonky on the policy side, the Tacoma School District has not been a one-to-one device district. That is to say, we have not philosophically issued every student in the district a device. We are rapidly trying to get every student in the district that needs the device access to a device. We prioritized our seniors and those that were getting ready for AP exams. So we did a mass distribution of computers right as schools were shutting down. There was about 2,500 devices. Subsequently, our team has been going into buildings and grabbing devices. Since we're not a one-to-one district, we have a lot of devices that students have access to. They just can't take them home with them. They're at the school. But with schools being closed, we're trying to get those into the hands of students that need them. The city has been great, the mayor especially, and the council in support of our need for internet connections. I think that there has been a gap with broadband, and I reached out to the mayor, and she instantly got back and got us connected with TPU and with Click. The superintendent and I had written a letter of support to or had written a letter to Governor Inslee and to Superintendent Reichdahl asking for broadband connections for our families, and Council Member Ushka and all of the City Council, but I know Catherine is a passionate former school board member, was greatly influential in getting that letter in front of the governor. The governor's office got right back to us and said, tell us more about your families and what your needs. So once again, it's a community-wide effort. And then the Foundation for Tacoma Schools has stepped up. I had some early conversations with Microsoft, and the foundation has stepped up to be both a contribution gatherer and a computer and broadband hotspot issuer. And so that's really helpful for us because our IT people are busy trying to keep these machines up and running, and to have a community partnership with the city and with the Foundation for Tacoma Students really goes a long way to meet the needs of our kids and families in Tacoma. And then it should be noted that we have several thousand more computers on order, as does every other school district in the United States of America. So we've been told they're coming. We're just not 100% certain when, but we believe that by the fall, every middle school student, every high school student will have access to a device. The board has been pretty adamant that we want the technology to support the curriculum and the pedagogy, and not just simply give a student a device. And so we're listening to our educators to better understand what their needs are to serve the students and to engage the students. But it's been really inspiring to watch the city step up and help these students and families in a time of need.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much, Scott, for that detailed response there. Very helpful. John?
Yeah, just so we have one comment, and then I'm going to turn into a question, and this question is going to be for Amitha from the Public Library. But the comment was to the council members at large: your videos reading to children were awesome. You generally seem to like children. And so one thing I have been saying quite often since I've started here is, right now we have 5 council members on the council that have children under the age of 10. There's 4 of us with children under the age of 5. So we are a very child-friendly council. I think we all really do love kids, no matter how old they are, no matter how old they have. I think we all really love them. So a question for you, Amitha, would just be, can you tell us a little more about the story times? I think that's been a really cool, innovative way to kind of continue to bring the library into our living rooms. So can you talk a little bit about that and what this library is doing about getting more content like that out to the public?
For sure. Yeah, our virtual store times have been adorable and amazing. And I do have to thank our city council members and our mayor for helping to launch one of those series. So if you're looking for story times with some of your favorite librarians or favorite members of government, you can head over to our YouTube channel and you'll find a number of story times available on demand for you, as well as instructional videos on things you can do with your kids. You can also tune into our Facebook channel. We've been offering a weekly live story time on Fridays, as well as some other hands-on activities for kids as well. And I would also love to plug a new program that we just launched called Radical Readers, which is a book club for our younger readers in Tacoma. So if you have a young person who's really geeked about books, our next event is happening in June, and you can find out about that by going to our website.
Thank you very much, Amita. And have I noticed there's been more content? There's been new pieces launched onto the YouTube page from the library as of late?
We are oh, hello. Hi.
Sorry, you want to wave?
Who's talking?
That woman right there that's in the box. Okay, sorry.
Hi. No, this is wonderful. We are launching content really just about every week. And I will say that's all ages content. We did sort of prioritize getting content up, particularly geared towards young people and towards families and caregivers, because we knew what pressure people were feeling to kind of figure out that learning environment in the home. But again, if you head over to that YouTube channel, you'll see content for all ages. So yeah, weekly new content.
All right. I feel like the dad from the BBC television right now. Thank you very much, Amita and Councilmember Hunter.
Thanks, John. Amita, it's no secret that we are big fans of the library and the library staff, and it's heartbreaking to hear the news about how many people have been furloughed as a result of the COVID crises. And we have a question coming in, which I think speaks to the genuine love and appreciation for the library. But are you aware, is there a Gofundme for the furloughed library staff? If someone wants to make a contribution that will find its way to a beloved library staffer who's furloughed and struggling, could you speak to that, please?
Sure, that's a really touching question. It really warms my heart that people are thinking of our staff in that way. I am not aware of a GoFundMe page, but I would be more than happy to do some looking into that just to confirm. I think we would know if that was out there. I do want to say that one of the things we've heard from particularly our labor partners is that a lot of our staff have been able to successfully sign up for their benefits and are even receiving their benefits and their checks right now. So that's been somewhat hopeful for us. So thank you for that question and for thinking of our staff.
You bet. Back to you, John.
All right. Thank you, Amita. And this next question is for Director Scott Hines. Director Hines, I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, but this is probably a broader conversation, and we may also bring in Alison on part of this for some other people. But basically, it looks like, as you say, school schedules may not look the same as they did before. We may be doing kind of a split shift or alternating days. And so the question was, what is the city doing? And I imagine the school district could be part of this too, to ensure that students can get safely to school without their parents. So are there plans in place or conversations around childcare or access to school when people are used to school 5 days a week and now it's going to be 2 days a week, or could be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's still very preliminary, but we would anticipate that all of our bus drivers would be driving our normal routes, and why we would try to keep school schedules as consistent as possible. So the days most likely would rotate, but the times would try to remain the same, understanding that parents and families have work schedules. And the mayor and I, it seems like 10 years ago, we're at Lincoln High School. I think it was just a few months. with the announcement of the partnership between the city of Tacoma and Tacoma Creates and the Pierce County Transit, that every high school student now has access to a bus pass. So trying to take care of those high school age students. And I believe there's been some consideration to invite middle school students as well. But that's one where we would really need to lean into our community partnership. And thankfully, we wouldn't be introducing ourselves to one another for the first time. We know one another. We've worked on projects together. I don't know, I would defer to my colleagues that we have any specific plans in mind right now. My sense is that the partners will wait for the school district to say, hey, we could really use your help on this. And then they'll just step up and be great like they typically are.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Scott and Lillian.
Thanks, John. Scott, don't go away here. I just want to piggyback on the question here about how what is the city doing to ensure students can get to school safely without having to rely on their parents. So you have detailed for us the importance of the school bus drivers, who are really the true heroes. Well, you'd have to chain me to a steering wheel to get me to be a bus driver, so my hat's off to them. But the city has made a commitment and has prioritized safe routes to school even before COVID, realizing that there are different areas of our city that are not up to our level of safety for any of our students, whether they are children or whether they're your grandmother. So the work on the safe routes to school and the sidewalks and the curbs and the flash continues. Our Public Works Department, even with the COVID crises, is using all the appropriate social distancing, and some of that work is still continuing. So that has not been shut down. That is something that the city is very aware of, and we partner with the school district to do that. So wanted just to get that editorial in there, that we are very aware of student safety, and we want to continue to promote that regardless of what else is happening. But with that, as we, with parents doing the best they can and the various resources, we know that there are students who struggle during the best of times and are certainly struggling now. And so Roshana has asked, if a student grade performance dips during COVID-19, how is the district prepared to mitigate the impact of poorer scores for all students, especially those with GPA concerns?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as we've talked about how this process has been iterative, that we get guidance from OSPI. I think we're on our third or fourth set of guidance from OSPI, and we're in our 10th week. And OSPI is working as quickly as they can. And about 3 weeks ago, the school board adopted a policy on grading that came as part of the emergency rulemaking from the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction. And central to the guidance from OSPI was to do no harm. And I can tell you that I spent a lot of time with my colleagues on the school board, engaged with the superintendent and the deputy superintendent and the team, really trying to think thoughtfully about how can we have a grading system, because OSPI was telling us we now needed to grade, but in a way that would not increase the learning gap and to put the onus on students and families, and especially when we talk about access to technology. So it's no fault of a student if they don't have a computer or they don't have a broadband internet connection. And so how could we possibly grade them similarly to being in class if they're unable to connect? And so we took those sorts of things into consideration. All 295 school districts in the state of Washington were able to come up with their own grading scale. OSPI told us that no student could fail a class. Tacoma Public Schools decided to adopt a policy that was an A, B, or C. OSPI also told us that whatever the student's grade was on, well, for us, it was March 13th. That was the last day of in-person school in Tacoma. Whatever their grade was at that point could not decrease. So students that engage during this virtual distant learning can only increase their grade. So we removed the failing grade, and we removed D's because we wanted to give students the benefit of the doubt that if they were engaged in person, that they would have opportunity to increase their grade. And we also had the ability to grant an incomplete, but we decided that the incomplete would put the burden back on the student and the family. And so we removed that option. I think actually we're the only district in the state that didn't give that incomplete. We thought A through C gave teachers the ability to assess students. I always trust teachers in the classroom as our education professionals to provide their professional assessment of students. And then it should also be noted that every transcript in the in the spring of 2020 will be notated that it was a COVID-19 year. And Vice President Cobb on the school board at our business meeting last week asked that there be further clarification in terms of our grading scale versus other districts' grading scales. I know that there was some concern that Seattle, for instance, adopted an A or incomplete. And the Tacoma School Board took grade inflation under serious consideration. We wanted to be fair, we wanted to do no harm, but we didn't think that giving every student an A seemed fair. And yet we hear back from students and families that say, well, I earned a C or I earned a B, and maybe a student in Seattle earned an A. How is there equity in that? And so we're working on ways that we can qualify the circumstance by which that grade was earned, the COVID, but also the grading scale by which that student was being evaluated by their individual school district. And I'm trying to be brief, but I don't want to move past the mental health part. I don't know if you can see it. I've got my orange NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. That is something that has touched me and my family over the years. I know it touches a lot of students and families. It's National Mental Illness Awareness Month, and it's tough. We are social creatures. We want to be with other people, and kids particularly. I think some days my kids go to school so that they can see their friends, and then they acquire some knowledge while they're there. And it's terrible. It's what I think about often is these students that are isolated, whose families are struggling. There's food insecurity and job insecurity and all sorts of pressures that are happening in the home. And I think the great thing is that there's a lot of access to mental health resources in Tacoma, Pierce County. And I would encourage anybody that's not feeling quite themselves to reach out to a friend, reach out to one of these mental health professionals and talk with somebody and talk through it. Inevitably, you feel better when you talk about it. And this social isolation, I know, has taken a toll on our students and families. So to the extent that we can continue as a school district and as a city to get those resources out so people are made aware of them, I know that there are a lot of people in need right now, and I would encourage them to take advantage of it if they feel like they need it.
Director Hines, I just, in reflecting on your answer, just evidence of the quality school district that we have, that you are addressing these challenges with our students and their grades, not only with integrity, but with compassion, and really appreciate your comments about the mental health aspect of that. And if something good can come out of this is that we can finally start acknowledging and frankly addressing those needs. So thank you for your good work there and for the answers that you gave. Certainly speaks to the caliber of school district that we have, even in this interesting times. John, back to you.
Yes, this next question is for Amitha. Oh, there she is. So Amitha, you and I have talked multiple times before I came into my role in council, I was on the board of trustees when Amitha came on, and we talked a lot about the library is more than books, and we do lots of things. And so this question is, what has the library learned during the pandemic about the way people use their resources? Have there been any lessons learned or insights you all have gained that can kind of influence the library going
It's a good question. We are certainly learning a lot and processing a lot. It's no surprise that a number of the resources that, the e-resources that I named earlier, they are just exploding. I mean, some of our digital tools, we've seen something like a 900% growth in the use of sort of those tools that are available to folks. So that's been really exciting for us because, to be honest, previously it was sort of really uninteresting to promote library databases, and suddenly there's this huge need and they're promoting themselves. So that's been really interesting. But I also don't think it's really okay to talk about that without also talking about the fact that the digital divide and digital inequity that's sort of being exacerbated in this moment is critical. And so we do have a small number of Wi-Fi hotspots that we circulate, and so we've been doing our best to try to make some impact sort of in that way. But you know, people come to the library to connect. They either come to the library to connect with their community and connect with their librarians, you know, who are, I have a number of staff who talk about how, you know, they just have their patrons who check in on them every day, you know, like there's that like really important sense of like social connection that we provide. And then libraries for really like the last decade, we've really become that critical lifeline for access to the internet and access to broadband. And it's been difficult that our buildings have been closed and that at this time we're not able to do this thing that has been so important to our service model. So I think it's making us ask foundational questions about how is it that we can really more systemically address the digital divide, because it was critical before, but it's you know, a billion times fold, really. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I think that's great. I mean, I think one about the idea that the library has Wi-Fi hotspots that people could check out is something that I don't know if people know, and there's been conversations about access to internet. So that's good. That's a good piece that the library can fill in lots of ways. And then I think your point is well taken, which is that the digital divide wasn't caused by COVID-19. It's just, we just see it more starkly, more clearly every day. And so, you know, thank you for all of your service on that. And I'm excited to see where the library goes going forward. Councilmember Hunter.
Thank you, John. I have a question here that is open to everyone on the panel. We had someone ask if Tacoma Public Schools is participating in Farms to Families. And this is a new, I'm not familiar with it. It's just a USDA Farmers to Families food box. And so I don't know, Director Hines, if you have some insights or awareness of this, or maybe even Madam Mayor, if you have some insights on that.
You know, when I saw it come in, I quickly pinged our deputy superintendent, and we're not aware of that specific program. I know we're working closely with the USDA on multiple programs, but I'm not familiar with that one. I would be interested to learn more about that if people think that it would be a viable option for students and families in Tacoma.
Yeah.
Thanks, Director Hines. I too have the same answer. Don't know, have not heard of it, but I will say what that does bring up for me is the fact that, and Director Hines, maybe you can talk about this just briefly, but it's about getting food to families. And I do want to acknowledge the school district for how many kids and families they've been feeding. When you drive up to get food, you don't need to say, you know, you don't have to show an ID, or you don't have to prove that you have that many kids. They're giving out food to people who need it. So Director Hines, I don't know if you want to kind of talk about how you're feeding students and their families during this time.
Yeah, I know that with our lunch program, our Chief Operating Officer, Chris Williams, early on, we unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we got a head start on this whole COVID shutdown because we had an outbreak at Mary Lyon and we had to close 4 schools. And so before all schools in Washington State were closed, 4 schools in Tacoma were closed. And what our early learning is that under the USDA program, you couldn't serve 2 meals at the same time. So as we were trying to serve socially distanced meals remotely to students, we wanted to be able to put a breakfast in that day's lunch so that they would have something to eat in the morning. And Chris Williams was able to talk some sense into USDA, and we're able to distribute 2 meals at one time. We have been focused on serving anybody that is school aged. So if you walk up to us and you appear to be school aged and you ask for a lunch, we've served that lunch. We've tried to be as flexible as we can during this historic health crisis, while still respecting the rules of the USDA program. It's not means tested. It's not only for students that are free and reduced lunch. It's any student that needs a lunch. And we know that there are a lot of kids and families right now that are experiencing need. And we're trying to dignify everybody that's hungry. We're not going to ask questions. It's not going to be an interrogation. If you're hungry and you come up, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to help you eat for that day. And it's been really amazing when you see almost 700,000 meals served, and the nutrition service workers at the crack of dawn putting them together. There is a true need. I don't think we have many bags left over. I think the staff's gotten pretty good at estimating how many meals per day at each site and on the bus runs. We don't have a lot of leftovers right now. And so, back to the program that was asked about, any way that the school district can be in partnership that's trying to get nutritious food into the bellies of students and families, we will do everything that we can to support that.
Okay. Well, I have the joy of having the last question this evening before we kind of wrap up for tonight. And this one is for Director Hines again. Very popular tonight. Someone had asked if perhaps a company wanted to donate computers to Tacoma Public Schools, Tacoma Public School students.
Yes.
Huh?
I'm sorry. I just joyfully said yes. Yes, please.
Yes. The question is there somewhere online they can go to see minimum technical specifications, or where would be the best way for them to find out about how to do something like that?
Yeah, a couple of ways. So Graduate Tacoma, the Foundation for Tacoma Students, has taken the lead. They've agreed to be the coordinator. And if you go to graduatetacoma.org, right on their homepage, they've got a link to internet devices. And I know that they have been in conversation with Microsoft for the coordination of that donation. And people would always be welcome through tacomaschools.org. You can see our IT department and our folks. It's the interesting thing that the buildings aren't open, but people are working. So we've got a full complement of IT staff that are up and running, and they certainly could reach out through tacomaschools.org to ask those questions. But Graduate Tacoma has taken the lead on this, so I would encourage people to initially reach out through them so we don't duplicate services. And anybody, I think we're in the point where any donation would be greatly accepted. So I think Amazon gave the Seattle School District 8,000 computers. That's not the benchmark. If there is an individual out there, anytime we can get a device into the hands of a student for this ongoing crisis, that closes a gap. That gives them an opportunity to be connected. It gives them an opportunity to learn. And so we really appreciate anyone that's generous enough to want to make a donation.
All right. Thank you very much, Director Hines, and I will turn it over to Councilmember Hunter.
Here, there we go. Interesting times that we're living in, and certainly it's challenging, but with each interesting time brings opportunity. And so we've heard some of the opportunities and the creativity in our community that exists to help our fellow citizens here and our community residents here. So I really want to thank Amitha, Director Hines, and Alison for participating. I really also hats off to Daniela for your interpretation services. We can't hear you, but we see you, and I know you're doing a fine job for us there. We're really lucky in the city of Tacoma, Grit City, to have such dedicated, knowledgeable people serving our residents. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And while the COVID crisis is challenging us, we are responding to that, not only as a city, but also as residents and citizens. I want to thank people who are continuing to abide by state restrictions. I've got my mask here just ready to go so we can continue to show the courtesy of social distancing and concern for our fellow residents here. And I know that our listening audience, as challenging as that is doing that, because this curve that we keep talking about is flattening. I know that if we keep moving forward together, we will come out stronger than we were going in. We're all learning new things, and hopefully the coming out of this happens sooner rather than later. We're all eager for phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and then our new normal here, whatever that means. So we started out here just telling the audience here who we were. Again, my name is Lillian Hunter. I am your council member, the at-large council member on the council that's citywide. And I would love to hear from you if you've got thoughts, ideas of what's happening, not only as it pertains to the library and volunteer services in the school district. You can email me at lillian.hunter@cityoftacoma.org, and happy to take a look at those emails. And again, this has been a real honor just to learn some things tonight and just to confirm what I think many of us already know, is that we have a city that has caring, professional individuals and outstanding city staff, outstanding library staff, outstanding school district staff, and then the input of United Way of what makes us stronger together. So thank you for this opportunity, and Mayor Woodards, thank you for your good leadership in putting these together. So that's it for me, and Councilmember Hines, I turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Lillian, and thank you, Madam Mayor. Really happy to participate this evening. I'd also like to thank Amitha, Director Scott Hines, and Allison from the United Way, and everyone who in the listening audience for participating. We hope you found this event helpful and you got some of your questions answered. It was great to be here. You know, as a father, as I said earlier, two little children, and I work for the school district here in Tacoma, my day job. This lockdown has made me even more grateful to the many organizations that take a hand in, you know, educating our children. You know, as also, like we said, I'm a product of the Tacoma public school system. I've been very happy to see everything that has happened here. You know, I've been frustrated with kind of the challenges that COVID-19 has shown we face in our community, but I've been deeply heartened by the fact that there's so many people who have stepped up and really tried to help. So, you know, thank you everyone who's listening. Thank you for everyone who's out there serving and working hard to help children and families in this community. Like Councilmember Hunter, I'd love to hear from you, whether you're from District 1 or not. You know, I'm more than happy to do everything I can to kind of help you and get the city going in the right direction to support you during this time. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at john.hines, Hines, at cityoftacoma.org, or council1, that is council and the number 1 at cityoftacoma.org. Either one of those will get right to me, and I'd love to chat further about what I'm doing here at the city or what we can do to help. So thank you very much, and I will now turn over to our wonderful mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Hines, and thank you, Councilmember Hunter. I was sitting here glowing almost like a parent, just watching the two of you host tonight's town hall, and you just did a magnificent job. So I just, hats off to the both of you for doing a tremendous job tonight, and just for your continued passion about every issue that faces Tacoma, but really about education and our youth. You know, our council's kind of like a football team. And everybody plays to win. We want to win for our city, but there are times when everybody has to play a special position in order for that to happen, which means some people have strengths in areas, and some people have strengths in others. And your strength and care and concern for education really showed through tonight. So thank you all so much for hosting us this evening. I too just want to thank all of the panelists. They were already named by Councilmember Hunter, and we can't forget Daniela, who's been in that room hosting for us. So again, thanks to all of you. You know, some people look to us to have all the answers because you elected us. But what we are is the people who can take your questions and get them answered, or take your thoughts and ideas and turn them in to something. So, and we're better when we do that. And so I just want you to know how strengthened we are by all of you. And please, as we've given out email addresses, don't hesitate to call or send ideas. As Councilmember Hines said, you absolutely, if you've got a computer to donate, or Director Hines said, if you've got a computer to donate, even one will make a difference in the life of a child in our city. So don't think that you have to have 8,000 or that you even have to have 5 or 10. If you've got one, that's one less child that will be held back, or that will have trouble, you'll tear down a barrier for one child and help them get through this school year and the summer and into the future. I know our time was limited. We couldn't address every question, but please know if you asked a question and we didn't get to answer tonight, we will get you an answer. If you asked a question that we don't know the answer to, we will get that question to someone who can actually answer it for you. We will continue to adapt in this time of crisis. This initial Tea Town Hall series has done a tremendous job in educating our residents in our community on a number of issues. And we will continue to find ways to bring information to you. For the latest updates on the City of Tacoma's COVID response, we ask you to go to the cityoftacoma.org. Again, City of Tacoma, all one word, .org. Or look us up on our official social media channels. You will find out what we're doing, what we're focused on, and what's happening next. I want to remind you, this is the 4th event our council has hosted in our virtual Tea Town Hall series. City of Tacoma staff will be hosting our next Tea Town Hall on June 4th. Not next Thursday, but the Thursday after, on June 4th at 6 p.m. on a new proposed site for the Tacoma Emergency Micro Shelters. If you have an interest in the topic, I hope you will join me and the members of the City Council to learn more about this project and to hear from community members on this very important topic. Again, remember, we are stronger together. We are Compassionate Tacoma, and we will get through this together as the community that we are. Stay healthy, take care of yourselves and your family, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks to everybody who made tonight such a great success. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.